Mental toughness isn't built in crises. It's built in small habits. Socrates knew this 2,400 years ago. Tiny daily practices that kept his mind clear, grounded, and unshakable, even when the entire city turned against him. Most people think resilience is something you discover only when life finally breaks you, when the job collapses, when the relationship falls apart, when the world hits you harder than you expected. But Socrates understood something deeper, something modern psychology is only now rediscovering. Your strength is shaped long before the crisis arrives. It's shaped quietly, in the tiny, invisible habits no one sees. Habits that teach your mind not to panic. Habits that keep your emotions from hijacking your decisions. Habits that anchor you when everything around you is shaking. Socrates lived through political chaos, corruption, betrayal, and ultimately a death sentence. And yet, those who knew him said he remained astonishingly calm, even joyful, in the face of it all. Not because he was born stronger, not because he was naturally gifted, but because he trained his mind every single day with small practices anyone could copy. You don't need a monastery, you don't need a perfect childhood, you don't need a quiet life. You just need a handful of habits, repeated daily until they become who you are. And here's the truth no one tells you. If you copy Socrates' habits for just 30 days, your inner resilience will quietly transform. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way you can feel, in your decisions, in your reactions, in the way pressure stops intimidating you. Imagine yourself 1 month from today. Calmer, clearer, harder to shake, more difficult to manipulate, more confident in moments where others crumble. That's the promise of this blueprint. And in the next few minutes, you're going to learn the 5 daily Socratic habits that build one of the toughest minds in history. Modern life demands mental toughness, but it quietly trains the opposite. We open our eyes and the world is already shouting at us. Notifications, schedules, unfinished tasks, messages we haven't replied to. Our minds start the day overloaded before we've even taken a breath. We react before thinking. We scroll before reflecting. We move from task to task, but never pause long enough to examine what's happening inside us. The result? Not weakness, but mental noise. A constant hum that keeps us busy but never grounded. Active but not aware. Productive but never present. Most people don't lack intelligence. They lack inner clarity. The ability to step back, observe their thoughts, and choose their response instead of being dragged by it. And this is exactly the weakness Socrates warned about. He saw it 2,400 years ago, long before smartphones, deadlines, or burnout culture. He said, "A busy mind can rarely be a deep mind." When your inner world is cluttered, pressure feels heavier. Small problems feel bigger. Every challenge feels personal. And when stress arrives, as it always does, we crumble because we never built the habit of questioning our own impulses. We've trained our minds to react, not to understand. So the real question is this: what did Socrates do differently? Why did his mind remain calm, steady, and almost unshakable, even when his city turned against him, even when his future collapsed, even when everything looked hopeless? To understand that, we need to look at the first daily habit he practiced, the habit that created immediate clarity, even in chaos. Strong minds are trained long before they're tested. Socrates understood something most people overlook. Moments of crisis don't build resilience, they only reveal it. He never waited for conflict to practice clarity. He didn't wait for pressure to practice calm. He didn't wait for chaos to practice self-control. Instead, he strengthened his mind the same way others strengthen the body, through small, repeated, almost invisible daily actions. Tiny micro-habits that sharpen perception, quiet disciplines that improve decision-making, simple reflections that helped them stay emotionally steady no matter what came his way. He didn't chase motivation, he trained patterns. He didn't rely on willpower, he relied on structure. And perhaps the clearest example is this. One day, a young student approached Socrates expecting a grand speech about courage, a long lecture, a dramatic lesson, a deep philosophy. Instead, Socrates looked at him, smiled gently, and asked only 3 simple questions. What exactly are you afraid of? What makes you believe that fear controls you? And what would you think if you saw someone else hesitate the same way? Then he walked away. No lecture, no performance, no dramatic wisdom. The student stood there, confused, until he realized the point. Strength doesn't come from admiring.
The student stood there confused until he realized the point. Strength doesn't come from admiring big ideas. It comes from examining your own thinking, daily, quietly, consistently. Mental toughness is not a heroic moment. It's the result of hundreds of micro moments where you choose awareness over impulse. Now, let's break down the Socratic daily routine. 7 small habits you can practice today to rebuild your mental toughness from the inside out. Habit number 1, the morning question. A strong day starts with a strong mind, and Socrates knew the fastest way to anchor the mind is with one simple question. What is within my control today? Not tomorrow, not next month, not the entire overwhelming weight of your future. Just today, the next waking cycle of your life. This tiny habit does something powerful. It narrows your focus to what truly matters. It cuts off mental noise. It reduces anxiety by shrinking the world to a manageable size. And it trains your mind to stop chasing things it can't influence, the opinions of others, the outcome of events, or the chaos of the external world. Socrates believed clarity begins with ownership, and ownership begins with understanding your circle of control. Here's how to practice it. Before you answer messages, before you check the news, before you open your laptop, take just 30 seconds and ask yourself that single question. Write the answer down if you can. Say it out loud if you prefer, or just acknowledge it mentally. You will feel the shift immediately, like your mind has a clean map for the day. Fewer reactions, more intention, less emotional noise. Once your direction is clear, the next habit builds emotional discipline. Habit number 2, the 3-breath pause. Socrates never reacted, he responded. He understood that most emotional mistakes happen in the first 2 seconds after we feel triggered. So he trained himself to create micro pauses that interrupt impulsive behavior. The tool is simple but powerful. Before replying, arguing, or judging, take 3 calm breaths. Breath 1, notice the emotion without fighting it. Breath 2, step back from it, create space. Breath 3, choose your response with intention, not impulse. This tiny pause rewires how you handle pressure. Imagine this. Someone challenges you at work. Maybe they question your idea, your competence, or your decision. Normally, you fire back, defend yourself, or shut down. But with the 3-breath pause, everything slows, your mind opens, your words sharpen, and suddenly the conversation shifts from heated to thoughtful. You're not suppressing emotion, you're mastering it. But clarity requires more than calm. It requires self-honesty. And that's why every evening Socrates asked himself one simple, disarming question. Where did I act without thinking today? Not to judge himself, not to feel guilty, but to understand his mind with honesty. This single habit rewires awareness, because the moment you see your patterns, you're no longer controlled by them. You begin to notice the real sources of your reactions, the defensiveness, the avoidance, the overreaction, the insecurity. You replay your day and realize you snapped at a colleague, not because of what they said, but because you were tired, stressed, or frustrated before the conversation even started. That insight, that clarity, pure strength. Because once you know the why, you can change the how. Socratic self-inquiry isn't about perfection. It's about awareness, the foundation of mental toughness. Now let's add the habit Socrates used to sharpen his judgment. Habit number 4. Test your assumptions. Your assumptions are your strongest blind spots. And Socrates knew that the mind becomes fragile when it trusts every story it creates. So he challenged assumptions the moment they appeared. Here's the daily exercise. Whenever you feel absolutely certain about something, pause and ask, what if the opposite is true? This single question forces flexible thinking. And flexible thinking is the foundation of mental toughness. Because certainty traps you, but curiosity frees you. You assume someone is ignoring you. Your mind jumps to irritation or insecurity. But then you ask the Socratic counter question. What if the opposite is true? What if they're overwhelmed? What if they simply missed the message? What if it has nothing to do with you? Suddenly, your frustration turns to understanding. And just like that, your emotional world becomes calmer and more stable. But toughness is not only rational, it's emotional.
Warm habit 5. Micro acts of courage. Courage grows in small moments, not heroic ones. Socrates believed courage wasn't a dramatic event, it was a muscle, strengthened through tiny acts of honesty practiced every single day. Here's the daily practice. Do one small, uncomfortable thing. Speak a truth you usually hide. Ask a question you're afraid will sound silly. Admit uncertainty instead of pretending. Take one step you've been quietly avoiding. These micro acts don't look dramatic, but psychologically, they shift everything. You finally raise your hand in a meeting and say, I don't understand. Can you clarify that? It lasts 5 seconds, but the mental shift is huge. You just trained your courage, gently, consistently, and without waiting for a crisis. Because the brain becomes braver the moment you stop running from small discomforts. Next is the habit that made Socrates unshakable in any argument. Habit 6. Listen to understand, not to defend. The strongest mind is the one slowest to defend itself. Socrates didn't listen to win. He listened to see, to understand, to uncover truth without letting ego take the lead. Here's the practice. During one conversation a day, commit to a simple rule. Don't interrupt. Don't prepare your comeback. Don't judge the speaker. Just listen with calm curiosity. This single habit builds patience. It strengthens emotional control, and it sharpens your perspective more than any argument ever could. Because when you stop defending, you start understanding. And understanding is the root of real mental toughness. And finally, the habit that ties the entire routine together, the nightly declutter. A cluttered mind collapses under pressure. Socrates understood this long before modern psychology. Every night, he cleared mental space by asking himself a simple, grounding question. What burden can I set down? It could be a fear you've been carrying, a frustration that drained your energy, a grudge that quietly poisons your focus. Let go of one thing each night, just one, and your resilience multiplies faster than you think. You release the irritation from a brief argument. It's small, yes, but it frees your mind from dragging today's weight into tomorrow. A lighter mind sleeps better, thinks clearer, and wakes ready to face the world with strength, not stress. So, how do you turn these habits into transformation? Mental toughness is not a personality trait, it's a daily practice. Socrates proved that strength is built in moments, not milestones. Your routine is now simple, repeatable, and powerful. Clarify what's in your control, pause before reacting, reflect on your day, challenge your assumptions, practice micro-courage, listen to understand, and declutter your mind each night. These aren't heroic acts, they're quiet disciplines, but quiet disciplines reshape your entire inner world. Do this for 30 days, and the strength you've been searching for will already be inside you. If this gave you a new perspective on resilience, subscribe, and let's rebuild the mind using ancient wisdom one habit at a time.